Call to order the Shellow Planning and Zoning Commission regular meeting for Tuesday, December 14th, 2021. We'll do a roll call, which shows that all commissioners are here. And we'll start with the invocation by Commissioner Adams, the Pledge of Allegiance by Vice Chair Barlow. If you'd like to join, please rise.
Our Father in heaven, we're thankful for the opportunity we have to gather here today and represent our community and those that live within our city limits. We're so very grateful for the opportunity we have to serve and to be able to serve the members of our community. And we ask that as we do so, that we might be able to have thy spirit with us, that we might be able to do the things that would be pleasing unto thee and to the community that we serve. We're so very grateful for this season and for this time of year. And we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I want to thank everyone for coming out tonight. We don't normally have this many people in here, which is nice. There are 3 agenda items this evening, and if you're here for one of them specific and it gets done, feel free to leave afterwards or hang out with us. It's fun. So first one up is A, which is consideration of conditional use permit 602-04240, submitted by Compassionate Care of AZ Inc., DBA Consume Cannabis, to allow for a marijuana dispensary located at 1350 North Penrod Road, that being APN 210-49-123. Ms. Feckelcroft.
Thank you, Chair and Commissioners. Compassionate Care of AZ Inc., DBA Consume Cannabis, has submitted a conditional use permit, or CUP, to allow for a marijuana dispensary located at 1350 North Penrod Road, that being APN 210-49124. Staff has reviewed the application and has found that it meets the requirements outlined in Title 19.120 Medical Marijuana Related Facilities of City Code. Several items have been excluded from the packet due to those items' confidential nature. Those items are available to Commission members upon request. In addition, some information included in the packet has been redacted for safety and security reasons. In November of 2010, Arizona voters approved Proposition 203, which allowed the use of marijuana for medical purposes. The proposition stated that local jurisdictions cannot prohibit medical marijuana dispensaries, or MMDs. However, cities may enact reasonable zoning regulations that limit the use of land for registered nonprofit marijuana dispensaries to specified areas. At its regular meeting of September 1st, 2020, the City Shellow Council voted to approve a zone change request to change the zoning of the subject property from I-1, which was light industrial, to C2, which is general commercial. As stated, the purpose of the zone change was to allow for MMD at the subject property. Per Title 19.120.040A, medical marijuana dispensaries are limited to the C2 zone through a CUP. Medical marijuana cultivation facilities are limited to the I-1 and I-2 heavy industrial zones. Because this will be an MMD and not a medical marijuana cultivation facility, a rezone of the subject property to C2 was required. In November of 2020, Arizona voters approved Proposition 207, which allows for the use of marijuana for recreational purposes. The Arizona Department of Health Services began accepting applications for recreational marijuana dispensaries on January 19, 2021. Based on this change to state law, the requirements for medical and recreational marijuana are considered to be the same. The subject property was previously utilized by Western Grade and is currently vacant. The applicant has indicated that they plan to relocate from their current location in Taylor to the subject property. The applicant will utilize a portion of the building for a marijuana dispensary. A floor plan has been made available to Commission members. At its regular meeting of June 4th, 2013, City Council approved CUP 602-04156, submitted by Green Hills Patron Center, Inc., or Green Hills, to allow for a MMD at 3191 South White Mountain Road. The council included 17 conditions as part of approval. These conditions have been attached for your review. At its regular meeting of June 20th, 2017, the City Council considered a request by Green Hills to amend the conditions of approval. Condition number 5 was eliminated and condition number 15 was amended to read, this permit is for the sale of medical marijuana related paraphernalia only. On-site cultivation is prohibited. City Council did not approve the request to remove condition 16, which limited the hours of operation to 6 days a week from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. On October 27th, 2020, the Planning and Zoning Commission approved CUP 602-04233, submitted by Compassionate Care of Arizona, Inc. for MMD on the subject property. Since the CUP has been approved, there's a completely new board of directors for Compassionate Care of Inc. DBA Consume Cannabis. Condition number 2 of the CUP stated, this conditional use permit is non-transferable. Should a change in ownership or location occur, a new conditional use permit shall be required. Based on the change in ownership, a new CUP is required. The applicant had also requested to be open 7 days a week. However, conditional number 15 of the CUP stated, the hours of operation are limited to 6 days a week from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. with commission review in 6 months. All other conditions of approval of CUP 602-04233 have been included for your review. The current applicant has also requested extended hours of operation. However, to be consistent with the conditions outlined for Green Hills and the previous approved CUP for this location, staff recommends that the days of operation be limited to 6 days a week from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Current zoning of the surrounding properties includes to the north and south, I-1, to the east, C2, and to the west, I-1. Current land uses of the surrounding properties include to the north, vacant industrial, to the south, quality ready mix, to the east, Northern Arizona Auto Mall, and to the west, quality ready mixed. Transmittal memos were sent to all affected agencies, and applicable comments received include from the Timber Mesa Fire and Medical District, or TMFMD, all installed security locks shall conform to the applicable 2018 Fire Code requirements. Any modifications shall require approval from the authority having jurisdiction and must meet all other applicable codes and standards. The property was posted and letters were sent to all property owners within 300 feet of the subject property, and no comment has been received regarding the proposed development at the time the staff summary report was completed. After reviewing the zoning ordinance, the standards for review, findings of fact, discussions with the applicant, and because the request is consistent with the City of Shiloh general plan, staff recommends that the Planning and Zoning Commission approve conditional use permit 602-04240 submitted by Compassionate Care of Arizona, Inc., DBA Consume Cannabis, to allow for a marijuana dispensary located at 1350 North Penrod Road, that being APN 210-49-123, subject to the following conditions. All development shall comply with all federal, state, and local all applicable state and local requirements, including Arizona Department of Health Services requirements, city zoning, and business permit requirements. 2, this conditional use permit is non-transferable. Should a change in ownership or location occur, a new conditional use permit shall be required. 3, the applicant shall comply with all documents submitted as a part of this conditional use permit, including the operational procedures and supplemental materials. Signage shall only display the facility name. Submission of an application for dispensary registration certificate constitutes permission for the city to enter and inspect the dispensary. An on-site inspection of the dispensary shall occur at a date and time agreed by the dispensary and the city that is no later than 5 working days after the city submits a written request to the dispensary to schedule the certification or compliance inspection, unless the city agrees to a later date or time. The city may, after receiving allegations of the dispensary's noncompliance with this conditional use permit or state law from a verified source, inspect the property for compliance with notice. If the city identifies a violation of City Code Chapter 19.120 or any condition of approval, the city may schedule a hearing related to the revocation of the CUP. The applicant shall be responsible for installing and maintaining exterior lighting to facilitate surveillance. A security plan meeting the approval of Arizona Department of Health Services with a copy provided to the city shall be required for the opening of business. All alarm systems shall comply with Chapter 7.2 Alarm Systems Regulations of the City Code. Panic buttons shall be installed in the interior of the building, and a security guard shall be on the premises at all times the dispensary is open for business. No loitering shall be permitted on the exterior of the proposed business. Only qualifying individuals, employees of the business, or other qualified individuals, including city and state staff members, shall be permitted inside the proposed business. The dispensary shall not dispense, deliver, or otherwise transfer marijuana to an entity other than a dispensary with a valid dispensary registration certificate issued by the Arizona Department of Health Services, a qualifying patient with a valid registry identification card, or designated caregiver with a valid registry identification card, or acquire usable marijuana from an entity other than a dispensary with a valid dispensary registration certificate issued by the Arizona Department of Health Services, or cultivation facility with a valid cultivation registration certificate issued by the Arizona Department of Health Services. This permit is for the sale of marijuana and related paraphernalia only. On-site cultivation is prohibited, and the hours of operation are limited to 6 days a week from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Staff as well as the applicant are available for questions.
Thank you, Ms. Fetchwater. I'm going to open it to, I do have some questions, but I'm going to open it to any commissioners. Okay, with that, I'll ask staff, is this just for medical marijuana, or is there also the ability to sell other?
So this is for both medical and recreational marijuana. With the change to the state law, it's for both.
Okay. The time frame that they're allowed to be open, do you know the original reasoning as to why that was set?
It is my understanding that the existing dispensary had been operating under those hours, that they hadn't been utilizing all of the hours, and so the city council said, you haven't been using those full hours as they are. We don't feel it necessary to extend beyond those hours.
And was that the time frame upon which we've been seeing non-medical sales?
That was back in 2000 when they went back for the request to amend those conditions.
Okay, because I've seen driving down the roadway next to the one that we have and they're not loitering, but they're standing outside waiting to get in nonstop.
Mm-hmm.
So that seems to be something that, I don't know. So under whose purvey is that determination of expanding those hours?
So, a little bit of an expanded history. When the original, the Green Hills dispensary came in, that came to the Planning and Zoning Commission, who granted approval of that conditional use permit. That conditional use permit was then appealed to the city council, who overturned the commission decision and voted to deny the application. The applicant then came back and presented some additional information and asked that that be reconsidered by the council. The council reconsidered that at a following meeting, and as a result of some of the discussions between the applicant and the city council reversed their previous decision and voted to approve the conditional use permit with the added conditions related to hours of operation, security guard. There were several different conditions that got added by the council at that point. The hours of operation, which are Monday through Saturday, from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m., that was a stipulation by Green Hills at the time that they were making that application. They since have come back to the city council, because the city council is the one that made that condition and ultimately was the final say on that conditional use permit being granted. They came back several years ago and asked that that condition be modified to allow for additional hours of operation. Primarily, they wanted to be open 7 days a week. They had several other requests that they made at that same time, including being allowed to sell paraphernalia Previously, they were not permitted to sell paraphernalia as part of the sales. Their concern or their position was much of this, what is considered paraphernalia, is now legal to buy at Circle K. Why is it okay to buy it there, but it's not okay to buy it at the place that you purchase the marijuana? And so the council said, that seems logical, and they went along with that. However, the council declined to increase the hours of operation, which is why you see staff coming to you with the recommendation that we be consistent between the two facilities, with the hours of operation being limited from 9 to 6, Monday through Saturday.
Could I make a comment?
Commissioner Roberts.
Yeah. Could I make a comment to that, Mr. Hefner, Commissioner Chairman? I think when we approved the CUP in 2020, we anticipated that having a second dispensary located in town is possibly going to reduce some of that pressure that you're seeing with people lined up. That they, with a larger availability and of locations for that, hopefully we won't see those long lines that we've been seeing as we drive up and down the road. I think the primary, if I read this right or understood it right, primary purpose in limiting the hours from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. was primarily for security. That there was an issue with if we, not so much opening earlier, but opening later, it could cause a security issue. I think security on our previous approval was also a major concern. And so when the applicant comes up, I would like to request a response as to if they've had much in the way of security issues at the Taylor facility when that comes up.
Any other commissioners have questions? Commissioner Hilgart.
Will this include in consumables, does that include edible? And how has the State Department of Health regulated or called for regulation for inspection of an edible versus a non-edible?
I am not familiar with those requirements. That may be a question better answered by the applicant.
All right.
Any other questions for staff? Commissioner Adams.
Yeah, just one question. So in summary, the reason why we're reviewing this CUP is because the change in ownership from the original approval, and so that's the main reason why we're talking about this today.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Vice Chair Barlow.
Tell me if I'm reading this wrong. On number 13, the staff recommendation condition there, am I missing where it says they could sell to anybody for recreational purposes? Because it seems like it is limited to just people with a valid registry identification card.
14.
Good question for Mr. Tregaskis.
Staff agrees that could probably be clarified. You see in there a qualifying patient with a valid registry identification card. That's the wording that we used back when medical marijuana was in place. This is one of the sections that the commission will be looking at as part of our general review of the zoning ordinance, primarily to update and remove the term medical, because we're now dealing with recreational as well. In our minds, they're the same at this point until those changes are made. When we use the term of a qualifying patient with a valid registry identification card, what that translates into today is anyone who's qualified under the medical or under the recreational use. However, it's certainly open to clarification if the commission so chooses.
I've got a question there, Commissioner.
Commissioner Lewis.
So on 15, where it limits 6 days a week, and that's to marry up with the other dispensary, is it clear in both of them that it's Monday through Saturday, or can now they offset? Can one of them do Tuesday through Sunday? Does that make sense? Does it need to be clarified, or?
It was clear in the record with the other one that it was Monday through Saturday, being closed on Sunday. That may be, again, another one that we probably should clarify. The hours of operation are limited to 6 days a week, Monday through Saturday, from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m.
Thank you.
Any other questions for staff? I think we do have some questions for the applicant. So if we could have the applicant please come forward, just state your name and an address, please, there at the podium.
Good evening, Tom Galvin with Rose Law Group, 71144 East Stetson Drive, Scottsdale, on behalf of the applicant. I'm also accompanied here by David Flood with the company, with the applicant, who can answer some of the technical questions that were raised earlier tonight and any other questions you might have. But I just want to point out, it was very nice to work with staff. This is actually one of the most thorough reports I've ever seen, and a very good job. I think staff has been really good to work with. We support that all of the proposed stipulations that staff has discussed with you tonight. And Mr. Lewis, the question about whether or not to say Monday through Saturday, 6 days a week, no one's going to try to pull over the wool over your eyes, so to speak. So if there's an amendment that says you cannot be open on Sunday, we'd be supportive of that. We just want to remain consistent with what was approved last year for the same CUP, now that there's new ownership, and obviously for the other facility that's already been approved in Show Low. And so then I will allow Mr. Flood now to introduce himself for the record and to answer some of the questions you might have. But thank you very much, and we
Mr.
appreciate
Chair,
it.
prior to you leaving, our recording secretary has requested that you state your position.
Oh, we're in favor of the item.
No,
Well, I would hope so.
with the Rose Law Group.
Oh, I'm an attorney with Rose Law Group. Yes, thank you. Sorry about that.
Good afternoon or good evening, and thank you for your time. My name is David Flood, and I'm chairman of Consume Cannabis PTS Corp. Compassionate Care and Compo Farms.
Commissioner Roberts.
One of our largest concerns when we approved the CUP for the previous owner for this location was security. And we looked into the background of the previous ownership, and they had been very security conscious. We hadn't been able to find any situations where there were security violations in their history. I haven't had the opportunity to do the same for your corporation, so I'm just going to ask you point blank. How are you guys doing on, we had, just as background, we've had in the area other security issues with some of the other dispensaries. So it is a concern. And our police department gave the previous owners a clean bill of health prior. So I'm asking you if you guys are as security conscious as the previous owner.
I think we're a little more. So we operate stores in 3 other states, and our average facility has about 45 cameras in it. With redundancy, so we can watch all these cameras at our corporate office. We outsource and do a third-party security firm. We're first and foremost concerned about our own people, but then when you invite the general public in, we got to make sure everybody's safe. So we spend a lot of extra attention to detail when it comes to security, and even the way we design, build our facilities. I don't know what staff would say, but our facilities we take a lot of pride in, but we also make sure that we design them in such a way that product and the product that we have on the property and the people we have on the property have the ability to be safe. And we use a vault to store everything, but we also use a panic room as well.
Okay. And again, in the area, not to identify any particular group, but we did have a situation where there was some internal theft in another facility. So I'm assuming that you're on precaution against that as well.
Yeah, so we operate on a global ERP system, so all of our systems talk to each other. So we don't operate in that. We're a very structured organization. We have every protocol written into our SOP when it comes to, weighing the product, right? I mean, this is a market where you can look at the individual products. So we got to make sure that we secure it in such a way that the shrink could be there, but it's not employee theft. And so the way we count and are down our inventory daily helps us protect against internal theft.
And one last question. Last year, there was a concern, and the police department had identified that for the safety of consumers, that the line going into the building be set up in a certain direction so that it was away. Highway 77 is highly traveled and highly trafficked, and so we had arranged so that for the safety of the consumer, that line would be directed in such a way as it was away from that busy street. So I'm assuming that you probably have some similar.
So the way we'll
Plans?
design it, right? So we're kind of set off the road and we have, I think, about 36 parking spots. So we're able to bring everybody onto our property. But then the other thing is we'll have an internal vestibule. So we try to keep our patrons off and out of the elements. So we try to get as many people into the building as we can. And part of the security concern and developed into our SOPs is we put a platform together that allows the patients and the adult use members the ability to pre-order before they even walk up to the register, before they even come on site. So they can get there, and that helps expedite everything, where we can bring them in. Our average ticket time at the register across the other states is about 3.5 minutes.
Okay. Thank you for your responses.
Commissioner Lewis.
In regards to your security guard, curious, is armed or unarmed?
I think we will use arm in most places. At Arizona, we're allowed to use arm, right? So we'll be using an armed guard.
So is that security guard, is there a program in place for continuous training for this individual? Is it an annual or a biannual, or, I mean, who are we hiring?
We always use third-party services. In other states, we use a cannabis-specific one, and they do all their training around the rules and regulations that are in that particular state. And they have a tendency to hire ex-officers or current officers looking for extra time on, extra money off the clock. Mhm.
Is the standard that your guard, is he an outside guard, or is he spend most of his time inside, or does he
So
float, or?
yeah, we do protocol where they actually walk the perimeter of the building, and they'll also be very present in the front. And then anytime we get a delivery, they're also present for that. I think this facility calls for what we'd call 1.5 guards across the entire week.
Thank you.
So you could have crossover.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Commissioner Hilgert.
So I raised this question to staff and, I work for the health department and environmental health is under my purview. And we've been waiting for some sort of information about the regulation of edibles and will it be regulated as an intoxicant, or will it be regulated as a food source? And do you have protocols in place for that regulation, regardless of how the Department of Health defines it?
Yeah, so what we do is so when we're building our new facility up in Snowflake, currently we're not making edibles in the state, right? So from our manufacturing side, we kind of operate everything underneath gearing towards the FDA and the way they would come in and look at our facilities. And so when the facility's built open, obviously we'd invite every one of you to come up and see the facility and see the way we operate it. But we run tight rules around OSHA, FDA, even though currently they can't govern us, but we're gearing towards that future. So we hired food scientists. We have third-party food companies that will come through and look at all of our recipes and everything and make sure formulations are correct. And then back to your testing question, we follow the guidance from the state, right? So they're the ones that authorize the labs to test the product and set the minimum and maximum of what's acceptable in the products. And so we use those labs that they give us, and we only use one, so we're not shopping for results anywhere.
Any other questions? So I have a question in regard to hours being opened. Like you heard me say up front, I see these long lines, and yes, of course, the second one in the area is going to add more ability to get things. But what do you anticipate, and why were you asking for more hours initially?
So it's the way we operate everywhere else. We keep all of our stores open from 9 to 9, and it also helps with scheduling of employees. It also gives more people more hours. It allows us to move more people from a part-time job to a full-time job. And that's what we look for, because then we get the loyalty from from the employee that they'll be there all the time rather than constantly looking for a job. And if, I don't know if we asked for 7 days, but if we did, the reason is there's a lot of people that use this product as a medicine. This isn't, everybody jumping up in tie-dyes and run down to the store. And people sometimes forget to pick up stop at the store, and they'll show up on Sundays if we ask for that. I don't know that we did, or the later hours. People, if we're closing at 5 or 6 p.m., most folks don't get off work till 5. So we're open when they're working. It makes it challenging for a lot of folks.
Okay. And I also heard you say something about being able to pre-order or preset your items or things like that. Is that both on the side of medical marijuana and then also on the other type?
Adult use, yeah.
Okay. And is that app driven or is it website driven?
The website.
Okay.
We can't sell anything on an app because of the federal statutes, but it's a platform in which they can use, redirects them to the app, and they're not buying anything. They're lining up their order.
Right.
So when they come in, they could say, security, Dave Flood's here. Then he can get into express lane. The vault will deliver the order to that lane. They'll check them out, and away they go.
Okay. Any other questions for the applicant? Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Thank you all.
Thank you all. Appreciate your time.
And bring it back to commission. Do we have any further questions for staff? If not, I'll
Do
entertain.
you want to open it to
other-
the public?
Comments from the public?
Yeah. Hey, why don't we get comments from the public? Is there anybody in the public that would like to comment on this topic? Usually I see them moving, which is I think why. Okay, so now I'll bring it back and entertain.
I would like to move to approve CUP 602-04240, submitted by Compassionate Care of Arizona Incorporated, doing business as Consume Cannabis, to allow for a marijuana dispensary located at 1350 North Penrod Road, that being APN 210-49-123, subject to the staff recommendations currently in our.
I have a motion by Commissioner Roberts.
I'll second.
I have a second, Commissioner Lewis.
If I could ask the question of Commissioner Roberts, does that include the clarification that the recreational users as outlined in
It
condition
does.
13 and the clarification of Monday through Saturday on condition 15?
It does. I propose that we include those recommendations in this CUP.
And I still second.
The motion and second by Commissioner Lewis. Any further discussion? Okay, with that, I'll ask all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimous.
You'll hear me make this statement probably 3 times tonight. There is a 7-day appeal period on any conditional use permit. If no appeal is received by the city clerk within those 7 days, this conditional use permit will be considered effective.
Thank you. Moving on to item 6B, consideration of conditional use permit 602-04-241, submitted by Homeland Fence and Supply to allow for a fence supply business and recreational vehicle storage located at 3301 South White Mountain Road, that being APN 210-33-013C. Ms. Feckelcutter.
Thank you, Chair and Commissioners. Homeland Fence and Supply has submitted a conditional use permit, or CUP, to allow for a fence supply business and recreational vehicle, RV storage, on property located at 3301 South White Mountain Road, that being 21033-013C. There is an existing office and storage building located on the subject property. According to Navajo County records, both buildings were built in 1958. These buildings have been vacant for several years. On May 10th, 2011, the Planning and Zoning P&Z Commission approved CUP 602-04143 to allow for the construction of a building exceeding 45 feet and to allow for the construction of a hotel on the property. On November 12th, 2013, the P&Z Commission approved CUP 602-04143A to extend the time frame of the original CUP for fence design and design modifications. Because this project was not completed within 18 months of approval, the CUP expired. At the regular meeting of February 7th, 2018, the P&Z Commission approved CUP 602-04-206 to allow for a building over 45 feet in height, grading and fill prior to issuance of a building permit, and extending the time frame to construct the hotel to 3 years. However, that CUP expired in February of 2021, and they no longer plan to build a hotel on the subject property. The property is zoned C2, which is general commercial, and fence supply businesses and RV storage requires a CUP in the C2 zone. Applicant has also indicated that they would like to install decorative fence along the property line. A conceptual site plan and pictures of the fence have been included. Current zoning of the surrounding properties include to the north and south C2, to the east AR-43, which is agricultural residential 43,000 square feet, to the west C2 general commercial, and also to the east, and also to the south is A general, which is Navajo County. The current land uses of the surrounding properties include vacant commercial office building, to the south vacant commercial and A general, to the east vacant agricultural residential, and to the west vacant commercial. Transmittal memos were sent to all affected agencies, and applicable comments received include the Arizona Department of Transportation, or ADOT, stated that an encroachment permit for access is required, which will entail a traffic and drainage study since it is a commercial business. Timber Mesa Fire and Medical District stated that fire apparatus roads must meet minimum loading requirements as prescribed in the 2018 International Fire Code as adopted by Timber Mesa Fire and Medical District, a 75,000 pound minimum. No public comment has been received regarding the proposed development at the time the staff summary was prepared. After reviewing the zoning ordinance, standard for review, findings of fact, discussions with the applicant, and because the request is consistent with the City of Show Low general plan, staff recommends that Planning and Zoning Commission approve conditional use permit 602-04-241 submitted by Homeland Fence and Supply to allow for a fence supply and RV storage located at 3301 South White Mountain Road, that being APN 210-33013, subject to the following conditions. All development shall comply with all applicable federal, state, and local requirements, including building permit, sign, fire code, and Arizona Department or ADOT requirements. An engineer shall certify of any changes to drainage and grading on the site. The surfacing of all accessways, interior driveways, and parking areas shall be surfaced in accordance with city code and meet the minimum loading requirements outlined by TMFMD. All vehicles parked or stored on the property shall be in usable condition. As indicated on the submitted site plan, storage of vehicles shall be located toward the rear of the property. All outdoor material shall be screened by a 6-foot solid material fence, and all material shall be stored below fence height. Landscaping meeting the requirements of City Code Chapter 19.70.120 shall be installed and maintained. The applicant shall coordinate with ADOT and city staff to landscape the White Mountain Road right-of-way. Parking and lighting requirements of Chapter 19.105 of City Code shall be met. All signage shall meet the requirements of Chapter 19.100 of City Code, and the developer of the subject property shall work with ADOT to obtain a new driveway permit. Staff, as well as the applicants, are available for questions.
Thank you, Ms. Dr. O'Connor. I'm going to open it to commissioners for any questions for staff. Yep, you do. Commissioner Roberts.
I have just one question. I'm not seeing clarification on how many RV spaces, maybe I'm missing it somewhere. How many RV spaces they'll be putting in that area?
I am not sure. It's kind of more of like a conceptual plan. That would be a good question for the applicant as far as how many they plan to store on the property.
Any other questions for staff? That will have the applicant please come forward. We've got some questions for you. If you would please state your name and your address.
Good evening, Thomas Cedarblade, 2450 South White Mountain Road in Shola.
And do you have a question?
I do.
Commissioner Roberts.
Yes, sir.
So how many RV parking spaces do you anticipate including or maintaining in
I
that?
would imagine there's going to be approximately 30 based upon the drainage in the area and then square footage that would be usable.
So that would seem to be a fairly limited amount of traffic and dust that we would see through that. Are you going to have dust control in all of that area as well?
Correct, yes, because what we're going to have is, as they stated, the fire department has requested an all-weather road, 75,000 pounds. So I think what that's going to entail is a pretty substantial solid base. We're going to have that design once this is approved, if it is approved. We'll go through the entire design process on what we've got to do.
And what will be your access hours for those owners to take their vehicles in and out?
I don't believe that's been considered yet, but I would say that it would probably be during regular business hours unless there was a call out type situation because, potential of theft and or damage or, in an after hours situation could be an insurance
Comment that
problem.
that road has become an extremely well-traveled road, very busy. So
Yes,
having those RVs going in and out of there can be a traffic.
yes, sir.
So are they going to access through Ellsworth or are they going to access further north?
Actually, if you look on that drawing, the very bottom is that long building.
Yeah.
That driveway right there is actually on the property that we're discussing.
Right.
That is going to be the driveway. That's why we're not too concerned about ADOT because that's an approved ADOT driveway anyhow. So we didn't have any intention of changing that in any way. And to meet the fire department's request, what we were going to do was proceed through the property, vertically up. And the city currently has that roadway right there that they maintain to get to their lift station.
Yes.
So what we were plan on doing was, and that's what's drawn in here, was for the fire department did not want to really do a turnaround. They asked that we have basically a drive in, drive out. So in the event there is a fire department situation, they will be able to drive through without any turnabout or roundabout or anything.
That'll be nice.
Yeah, to be honest, I would personally rather exit with an RV
Down there.
there, not down near the house because of Ellsworth and because of the foliage there and sign.
I would agree, and that is one of the things that we do have to check with ADOT. Like I said, the one has been approved for, 15, 20 years. I don't know what the situation is with the access to the lift station, whether the city ever went through any type of
Right.
I'm sure we did.
approval process. I'm sure you did too, so I'm hoping we did.
They do typically have their stuff together. Right?
Well, that's what I'm thinking. So, again, my hope is that we basically say, listen, we're using the existing driveway here and we're using the existing driveway there. And we don't see a massive amount of traffic going in and out of a, fence supply company.
Are you gonna raise the old building?
No, they've actually started working on the interior a little bit right now to get it cleaned up. Yeah, so Doc Wafers
Yeah, Doc.
Veterinary Clinic is going to remain.
Is that what it was?
So are you going to help
Yeah.
bring fence prices down now?
We'll work on that.
Okay, any other questions for the applicant? Vice Chair Barlow.
And so to clarify, there is no access for this property. It doesn't look like it onto Ellsworth Road directly.
There's not.
Okay.
Yeah, that other property is in the way.
Okay. And I have dealt with ADOT in the past as far as getting entrances like this approved, and they do consider it kind of a new program every time something new goes in. So just keep a heads up for that.
Okay.
Any other questions for the applicant? Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate your time.
Thanks.
With that, I'll open it up for public. Any public comment regarding this item? Okay, with that, I'll bring it back to commission. Any other further questions for staff or discussion? Not, I will entertain a motion. Vice Chair Barlow.
I move to approve CUP 602-04-241 submitted by Homeland Fence and Supply to allow for a fence supply business and recreational vehicle storage located at 3301 South White Mountain Road, that being APN 210-33-13C, subject to staff recommendation.
Second.
And a second. Commissioner Adams. Didn't get it out. Okay, all those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? With that, passes unanimously. And
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As stated previously, with any conditional use permit, there is a 7-day appeal period. If no appeal is received by the city clerk within those 7 days, this conditional use permit will be considered effective.
thank you. So moving to item 6C, I'm going to declare a conflict of interest and recuse myself as I do business with the applicant specifically for the restaurant. So I'm going to exit and hand over to Vice Chair Barlow.
Thank you, Chairman. We will move on to item 6C, the consideration of a conditional use permit number 602-04-242, submitted by Gary Martinson of Bison Homes to allow for grading, a restaurant serving alcohol and multifamily housing located at 3905 and 3921 West Cooley, that being APN 309-46-12C, 309-52-28A, and 309-52-29.
Thank you,
Ms.
Vice Chair.
Vestapar.
And Commissioners. Gary Martinson of Bison Homes has submitted a conditional use permit, or CUP, to allow for grading a restaurant serving alcohol and multifamily housing located at 3905 and 3921 West Cooley, that being APN 309-46-012C, 309-52-028A, and 309-52-029. Applicant has submitted a request to begin grading prior to obtaining a building permit. The property is 5.12 acres in size, and the proposed development will include a new 7,800 square foot restaurant serving alcoholic beverages and 15 one-story unit villas with 2 units each, including a 1-car garage for each unit, with a total of 30 new residential units. The applicant may rent out the villas or sell them independently. The number of villas and or the restaurant size may need to be reduced to preserve trees on the subject property. The applicant has indicated that there will be a 20-foot setback and a 6-foot solid material fence between the subject property and Fairway Park Center and Torion. The subject property is zoned C2, which is general commercial, and grading on lots over 5,000 square feet prior to the issuance of a building permit, restaurants serving alcoholic beverages, and multifamily housing over 10 units require a CUP in the C2 zone. Current zoning of the surrounding properties include, to the north, C2 and C1, which is neighborhood commercial. To the south, RCD, which is recreation community district. To the east, C1 and RCD. And to the west, RCD. Current land uses of the surrounding properties includes, to the north, Circle K and vacant commercial. To the south, Trailhead at Torion subdivision. East, commercial office buildings. And west, Fairway Park Center and Trailhead at Torion subdivisions. Transmittal memos were sent to all affected agencies, and applicable comments received include Arizona Department of Transportation, or ADOT. This project will need to submit a traffic study when they apply for an access permit from ADOT. Timber Mesa Fire and Medical District, or TMFMD, stated they must meet all applicable fire codes. Staff has received 2 phone calls from neighbors, one who had questions about a fence and another regarding general questions about the project when, at the time the staff summary report was written. And after reviewing the zoning ordinance, standards for review, findings of fact, discussions with the applicant, and because the request is consistent with the City of Show general plan, staff recommends that the Planning and Zoning Commission approve CUP 602-04-242, submitted by Gary Martinson of Bison Homes, to allow for a grading, a restaurant serving alcohol, and multifamily housing located at 3905 and 3921 West Cooley, that being APN 309-46012C, 309-52021A, and 309-52029, subject to the following conditions. All development should comply with all federal, state, and local requirements, including but not limited to Arizona Department of Environmental Quality, Arizona Pollutant Discharge Elimination Systems requirements, and stormwater pollution prevention plan and permit. Hours of operation for grading shall be limited to 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. Dust and smoke from grading and processing operations shall not adversely impact neighboring properties. The applicant shall not negatively impact any existing easements located on the subject property. A grading permit shall not be approved without a tree preservation plan showing meaningful tree preservation of trees on the subject property. An approved grading permit is required prior to commencement of grading activities. All signs shall comply with Chapter 19.100 of City Code. All parking areas shall comply with Chapter 19.105 of City Code parking. All lighting shall comply with Chapter 19.110 of City Code outdoor light control. Prior to the sale of alcohol at the subject property, a state liquor license shall be obtained, and a 6-foot solid material fence and 20-foot setback shall be installed and maintained between Fairway Park Sutter, lots 91, 96, 97, and 90, and, lots 91, 96, 97, and 98 of the trailhead at Torion boundaries. Staff, as well as the applicant, are available for questions.
Thank you, Ms. Cotter. I will open it up to commission members for questions for staff. Commissioner Roberts.
On our little site plan that we have here, it shows where the restaurant would be located and where the villas would be located. I think, because I'm counting 15 units in that parking lot area. Is that where they would be?
So the villas are in this area here.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
2 to 1.
Okay,
And then they have
those are the garages
yeah,
out there?
these are these little areas right here. Yes, those are the garages.
All right, that was what I wanted to clarify.
Mhm.
It would appear to me, and maybe this is more a question for the applicant, but it would appear to me that these are going to be constructed in similar design and function as the units that were put in it where the pro shop used to be at 36th Street in Old Linen.
That is correct.
Okay, that's all the questions I have.
Any other questions from commission members? I do have a question as well. Does this CUP allow for any grading on that neighboring parcel on the sheet TR 100? It's parcel 309-66-994. Because on the grading plane it shows some grading on that parcel, but I don't think that parcel was listed in the CUP.
Right, so to kind of clarify and to go along with the question that was asked by the vice chair, the portion of the property that they're requesting a grading permit on prior to obtaining a building permit is the portion for the parking lot and the restaurant. So that would be the portion closest to Clark Road. What you see on the overhead, which is labeled as the grading plan C-103, you can see the parking lot area, the driveway area, as well as the restaurant pad and detention basins. Those are the portion that they're requesting the grading permit for at this time. The undeveloped portion, which is the portion adjacent to Fairway Park and Torion, that would be developed as part of the Twin Home project. Their intent there is to try to maintain grade as much as possible. so that they're not getting into grading or topography or root zones and all those other different things. So when we're discussing the grading permit tonight, what we are discussing primarily is the parking lot and driveways for the restaurant.
Any other questions? Well, if there are any questions for the applicant, yes, if we get the applicant to come forward and just state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. My name is Gary Martinson, 720 North Retreat Way. So do you want me to give you a little overview of why I'm presenting this project, or you want to just ask questions?
I had just a couple of quick comments and questions. First of all,
Roberts?
I'm Commissioner Roberts. First of all, I want to thank you for all the development that you've brought to town. They've typically been high-quality developments, and we've appreciated the fact that there's been quality developments done.
Thank you.
I have the only big question I have is the existing Buffalo Bill's restaurant that's over in the Pro Shop building.
Yes.
Is that going to be transferred over to here? Or are you going to maintain that restaurant? You're going to have two of them or just one?
It's going to be one. We're actually moving Buffalo Bill's to this location. And it kind of came up a few months ago when our lease is up on that building in 2022. And the particular owner of that building right now has not been very cooperative in wanting to make improvements that we thought were necessary to move that thing forward. And so we just decided we'll just figure out a way to build our own building, and it would happen to be this is a parcel of land that I have had eyeballed for this project for a long time, and it happens also to be a little bit larger than what we need for the restaurant. So we're using probably less than half of it for the new Buffalo Bills, which will be a little bit bigger, a little bigger patios and so forth than the one that exists right now. But it also give us the opportunity to develop a low density residential for sale product, which all of the for sale product, when we eventually do it, will be a single story that borders all of the additional residential land around there. And we're actually, this will end up to be two totally different projects. The restaurant will move forward as one, and then as we get through the planning process on the residential, we'll be starting all over again, you know.
Thank you.
Commissioner Hillbeck?
Do you have a timeline for the residential project?
Yeah, we're still hoping that we need to be hopefully in construction on the restaurant by probably March. We'd like to get it open by October of this coming year. The residential should follow fairly close, maybe June or July, depending upon how we really hone in on the product. I've had the opportunity to have several discussions with the staff regarding how to move forward with this thing, do the right thing, both in tree conservation as well as in the product itself. So it really becomes a kind of a secondary supportive residential property to Buffalo Bills. Buffalo Bills has been doing good the last couple of years. So
Glad to hear it. Hopefully your new location will bring in even more business for your restaurant.
yes, yeah, that's a great location on Highway 260. Yeah.
Any other questions for the applicant? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And with that, I will open up if there's any members of the public. Yes, ma'am.
May I ask a question?
Yes.
Thank you.
Now's the time for members of the public. If you wish to speak on this topic, please come forward, state your name and address.
My name is Virginia McCormick, and I reside at 451 North 40th Circle.
Ma'am, if you could come up to the podium so that way you're speaking into the microphone for the record.
The property directly behind where Mr. Martinson plans on building these units. My back property currently faces the property that he is purchasing or has purchased in order to put these two 15-unit apartments in. Now, growth, I mean, we all know that the city is growing like crazy. So, of course, nobody can be too terribly surprised about this. But when I bought this property 6 years ago, I was told by the previous owners, which may or may not be true, that from my property line to the Circle K, which is on the corner of Cooley and of course Clark Road, that property was an easement and that it would never be built on. And that he had checked with the city of Sholo on that. Because right now it's a wooded or forest area. So it's very private, of course, for us. And there's an area in there where there's no homes and there's a lot of trees on the property. I'm a little concerned about are they all coming down, or can they strategically keep a few of them that don't get in place of the building? Because when I sit on my back porch, I'm looking at a forest area, so it was a bit of a jolt to hear this, obviously. And hey, growth is growth. I understand all that. And Mr. Martinson has done a lot of wonderful things for the city. So, in my mind, I've kind of accepted it, but I was curious about the easement. And he did state that he would put in a 6-foot solid fencing, which would give me some privacy. So, I don't know how to address the easement part, but is that something that can be checked on, or?
So just kind of a point of order, usually during the public portion of the meeting,
Uh-huh.
we allow the individuals to come forward and make statements or ask questions.
Oh,
We typically wait until everybody has come forward and then we'll answer all the questions at once rather than having a back and forth.
okay,
So
fine.
I've got a couple notes here regarding the easement
Oh,
as well as tree preservation and the fence. We will answer those questions once everybody's had a chance to ask all their questions.
okay, fine.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chergassis. Is there anyone else from the public who wishes to speak on this agenda item? I've seen none. I'll turn it back over to Mr. Chergassis.
Okay, there were several questions brought up during the public portion of this meeting. First of all, there was a question regarding the existence of an easement between Fairway Park and Circle K there on what would be West Cooley. While staff has not done an actual title search on this property, we have reviewed parcel maps, assessors information, that type of thing. We are not aware of any easements on this property that would preclude this development. Obviously, Mr. Martinson needs to do his homework to verify that that is the case. If for example, there's a power line easement that ran through there, it's in Mr. Martinson's best interest to not build his buildings in the power line easement. Because that could bring his buildings into perhaps having to be torn down because they're in conflict with the easement. From staff's perspective and staff's understanding, there are no easements that would prohibit these buildings from being built there. I don't know what information was conveyed previously, but I appreciate the opportunity to clarify that. Secondly, on tree preservation, we did speak with Mr. Martinson a couple weeks ago, where I think we made it pretty clear that tree preservation is a concern of ours on this property. You'll see that's one of the reasons that staff made a recommendation that tree preservation plan showing meaningful tree preservation would be submitted and approved by staff prior to them beginning the grading operations on the property. Subsequent conversations with Mr. Martinson, he has conveyed that that is a concern of his as well. What you see on the conceptual plan, in fact, I just spoke with him right before this meeting. He would like to be able to go in and move those buildings around. If there's a nice stand of trees or a specimen tree that they would like to preserve, he would like to have the ability to move those buildings to accommodate that. So tree preservation is a concern, both of the city as well as the developer on this. And then finally, the fence, Mr. Martinson has committed that he will put a 6-foot solid fence between this property and Fairway Park, as well as this property and Torreon. So he's looking out for both Fairway Park and Torreon. He's not picking one or the other. He's fencing along both of those subdivisions. That is, I believe, also followed up in a recommendation by staff that that would be required. As part of this, he is also showing a minimum of a 20-foot setback. So as he moves those buildings around, perhaps to accommodate some of those trees, he cannot get any closer to Fairway Park or any closer to Torreon than 20 feet with those buildings. Again, the idea there is to help accommodate the existing neighborhood and not encroach right into their backyards with these new buildings. That also is a recommended condition from staff. So with that, staff is available for additional questions.
Can I ask a clarification there? So with that 20-foot setback between this property and Fairway Park and Torreon, that hopefully will help with the tree preservation plan, because that 20-foot area will be most primarily filled with trees?
Correct.
Any other questions or discussion among the commission? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion on this item. Commissioner Hatch?
I move to approve CUP 602-04242 submitted by Gary Martinson of Bison Homes to allow for grading a restaurant serving alcohol and multifamily housing located at 3905 and 3921 West Cooley. That being APN 309-46012C, 309-52028A, and 309-52029, subject to staff recommendation.
A second.
Second by Commissioner Roberts. All those in favor of the recommendation, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? And that passes unanimously.
Thank you. Again, with any conditional use permit, there is a 7-day appeal period. If no appeal is received by the city clerk within those 7 days, this conditional use permit will be considered effective. Thank you. There we go. Let the record show that Chairman Hefner has rejoined the meeting at this point.
Cool. With that, we'll move to call the public. And if there's anyone who would like to come forward for call the public, I can read the boilerplate. Okay. They're preemptively jumping on that, aren't they? Okay, I get it.
Session is totally over now, right? On the
Yes, ma'am.
number 3.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, so I'll move to item 8, which is approval of minutes. The approval of the minutes from the regular meeting of November 9th, 2021. I'll entertain a motion to approve those.
Move to approve.
Commissioner Hilgard move to approve. Need a second by Commissioner Adams. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And any opposed? Seeing no opposed, passes unanimously. Move to a summary of current events, starting with Commissioner Lewis.
2 things. One, Merry Christmas to everyone. Second, I was able to attend a planning and zoning meeting in the Valley the end of last week, and I just express appreciation that the commission has such a good working relationship with staff. It was interesting listening to other commissions throughout the state and how often that it happens throughout the state that staff and commissions butt heads. So I'm grateful that we have a good working relationship.
Commissioner Hilgard.
So, yep, I was going to extend greetings of Christmas to my colleagues on the commission and hope everyone has a blessed holiday.
Commissioner Hatt. Commissioner Hatt.
Well, it's obviously a great day in Sholo. That's kind of my mantra. I like this place a lot. I would, at this time of year, remember those that are more fortunate to know how to give to those that are less fortunate, and really what the spirit of Christmas is all about. I think we get pretty well caught up in the me syndrome, and we miss a lot of opportunities to just do little things that mean a lot. Like, so take for instance, if you have a bike from one of your children that has been stuffed under the deck for 5 years, right? Never been rode. Take it down to our local bike guy here, have it fixed up, and get it to a child to be used. That would be immense for that young person. So things like that, just we keep walking on. Let's try to walk better, with a little better purpose.
Thank you, Commissioner Commissioner Adams.
Yeah, I'd just like to recognize the city for their efforts in the annual parade. I was able to take my family to that, and another great event, very pleasant. Obviously, the kids loved it, so I'm sure Mr. Tregaskis can clarify who was in charge of that. But just would like to recognize them in those efforts.
Commissioner Roberts.
I was fortunate to attend with Commissioner Lewis, Commissioner Hefner, and Director Triaskis, the Planning and Zoning Training meeting that we had on Friday down in the Valley. And in that meeting, the attorneys there that were teaching us said, in a perfect world, this is how it would work. And lo and behold, that's how we do it here in Sholo. So I agree wholeheartedly with Commissioner Lewis. We're doing everything right. I was in the city council meeting a week ago, and the auditors gave their report on our financial situation and our financial transactions that we had done over the previous year. And we were given a more than adequate, a very high mark for our financial department and our finances in the city. We have a very well-run city. And you look at the Christmas decorations. I happened to come back into town at 2 o'clock in the morning, coming up from, I was coming back from Flagstaff, so I came in from the 77. And there was nobody else on the road, but you could look down the Deuce clubs and it looked fantastic.
Even at 10 it does.
Even at 2 o'clock in the morning, with my eyes mostly closed. But it was great. We have a great city. It's a wonderful city. Like Commissioner Hatch says, it's a great day in Sholo.
Thank you. And Vice Chair Barlow.
Yeah, just would like to add, gratitude to city staff for how thorough they are with putting these packets together every week. They really are quite useful, and very thorough information, and always very helpful. Helps me to come to the meeting really prepared, and so I appreciate all the work that they put behind the scenes in the weeks prior to get these put together.
So as the last meeting, once again, Merry Christmas to everybody. These commissioners are really top notch. It's really cool to be with a group like this. The meeting down there obviously shows our staff is top notch. So I echo pretty much all the sentiments that were delivered there. Director Tregaskis.
Thank you. So I also was able to attend that meeting. I came away with a few things we can do better.
Of course.
Appreciate the kind words, but there's always room for improvement. Every day you can be a little bit better than the last. So as a staff, that's what we look to try to do. Also would like to just echo what has already been said. First of all, Merry Christmas. We're still allowed to say that, and I will say that. So Merry Christmas. And happy holidays as well. I recognize that there are people who celebrate this season for perhaps a little bit different reason than some of the others, and certainly don't want to take away from them or from their beliefs, but we're certainly glad for the sentiment behind this season that we have. Also would like to invite anybody to our downtown area. If you've not driven through already, our Public Works Department has really stepped up this year. It's really quite a good show to come down, and we have some local volunteers that have helped do some lighting as well here in front of City Hall to help brighten it up as well. So with that, Mr. Chair, I'll turn it back to you.
Okay, I'll let Commissioner Rogers say something briefly.
Yes, briefly. I want to send out heartfelt condolences to the people that suffered from tornado losses this week. We're blessed we don't have that issue here. Our biggest issue here is fires, and we were very blessed this year from that. We have also had recently several serious car accidents, and we need to try to encourage people to drive a little safer.
With that, I want to thank everyone that came tonight and those watching on Sholo TV. I'll adjourn this meeting. Cue the music.